This is Around Town with Tanika, the Red Chair Edition. Hey y'all, it's your girl Tanika with Tanika Donnell Realty. And on this episode of Around Town with Tanika and the Red Chair Edition, I have an amazing guest today. This is Dr. Brian Samuel. He is now, let me get this right, the VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the University of Arlington. Welcome, Brian. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I want to tell you, I am honored because not only is Brian one of my clients, he's considered a friend now, and I'm really intrigued at his new position. So I am so honored that you'd come spend some time with us today.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And as I mentioned previously, you honor people with invitations. They honor you when they accept it. So I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. Well, your official title is, now this is long, y'all, so I had to get it written down. Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at UTA, which is a big mouthful, but really what does that mean?
It means that the University of Texas, Arlington has made a conscious and informed decision that it's going to work very intentionally, very institutionally to be good in all facets of the diversity, equity, and inclusion continuum. That will include many things, from enhancing the rate at which our students enter and graduate from the university, which we're number one in the state of Texas for African Americans and number 15 in the nation. That's for the master's degree for African Americans. We're very, very high ranked for Hispanics and all members of marginalized population, including individuals who are financially challenged, individuals who may have disabilities and things of that nature. So it's a very important aspect or component of the character of our university, and I'm so excited to be the inaugural vice president and to be associated with the very first one, and to be associated with the university. Yes.
Well, when you hear about words diversity, equity, and inclusion, personally, what does that mean to you?
Well, I tell people all the time that when I see diversity, I like to think of it, from a team type of mentality, right? So, if you ever played a mean game of kickball, right, when you were in elementary school, right? Sometimes people pick their teammates based on their friendships or who they like, or I ain't friends with you, so you can't be on my team, or whatever. And then some people pick the team based on who can kick. And
that's how you did it, huh?
That's right. Who can kick, who can catch, who can run fast, right? Who can steal a base, who can throw a ball and hit somebody out, right? Right. So when we think about diversity, we really want to think about the value and the contributions that an individual can bring to the organization, right? In accomplishing our strategic goals and objectives as it relates to DEI or inclusive excellence or research, scholarship, and all that other kind of thing. When we think about equity, a lot of people confuse equal or fair and equity, right? And
break that down for us.
Those terms are very separate and distinct. When we think about equal means you and I have the same thing, whatever that is, right?
We're equal, same,
we're
identical.
Equal, we're the same, we're identical. You pay $5 for a Big Mac, a French fries, and a Coke, right? I pay $5, I get a Big Mac, a French fries, and a Coke. Equity is about each individual getting what they need in order to be able to be their full selves and to contribute and accomplish the different goals and objectives that they are aspiring to. And that may not be the same.
Right.
Some people need to telecommute.
Yep.
Some people need to be working right in the office, right? Some people may need any number of accommodations or support around professional development, career advancement, or other kind of things. And others may not need it. So when we think about equity, the way to think about that is, what does each individual need? I'll give you one more example. As we think about equity and equality and that kind of thing, that a lot of people really struggle with understanding the difference between the two. It's a difference with a distinction, okay? All right, you ever been to a concert or a play or what have you, and you notice that the women's restroom line is way longer than the men's restroom line? Way longer. Right? It's a natural phenomenon all across the country. We see it every time we go out, right? Well, that's because they're equal, right? You have the same number of restrooms for men and for women.
That's true.
Now, if we were thinking about equity, right? A lot of time women are responsible for child rearing, diaper change. Now that's not to say us men don't do it at all,
not. Of course
but
not.
more often than not,
Yeah.
we see that, right, for women. We also know that in many cases, women will use a restroom or facility for many different purposes, right, than what a man will use.
Right.
And over time, if you look at it, more often than not, it takes a little more time for a woman as compared to a man. And so what happens is we got the same number of resources, restrooms and stalls, but we have different needs and different things that
Great way
make
to
it,
look at it.
that make it not necessarily equitable, but it is equal, right?
I
So
understand that.
the two are not the same. And then finally, inclusion. When we think about inclusion, we're really talking about belonging, right? And having an opportunity to meaningfully and fully engage in everything the university offer, to be able to offer your opinions and your perspectives and have your lived experiences and your knowledge and skills be incorporated into decision-making processes, into different things that are important so that you can get the best out of your work or learning environment, whichever the university is for you. So when I think of inclusion, I like to think of dances and parties, right?
Okay.
And some people will tell you that inclusion is being able or being asked to dance by somebody at the party.
Okay.
And I reject that idea.
You reject it completely.
Oh, I reject it.
Why?
Unapologetically.
Okay.
Right? Because if I belong, I don't need you to ask me to dance.
Well,
I can dance by myself.
and that's true.
Or maybe I can ask you to dance, right? If I belong, if I'm a member of the community and I'm a part of the culture, if you will, or what have you, then it's not important to me that you ask me to dance. I don't need your permission, right?
So I can get out there and dance
That's
by
right.
myself.
It's also not a good example because if I'm included, then maybe I have some thoughts on the DJ, the type of music, the genre of music,
Right.
the date that it was scheduled on. So we're having a party, I'm included, but you scheduled it on a holiday that I have to observe for my religion.
Right.
But you want me to feel included because you asked me to dance. Well, if I really was included, you would have probably connected with me about when you were going to offer
That's
it,
true.
what type of music, what type of decorations, what type of celebration it was going to be, and all
Right.
those other kind of things. If I'm really included, right?
Right.
So inclusion is about having an opportunity to put your stamp and be engaged. Now that don't mean it's always going to be the way you want it,
Right.
but you also get an opportunity to just kind of weigh in on some things that are important to you.
Well, tell everyone a little bit how you got here. You are the inaugural VP, and I'm intrigued to know what was your trajectory? How did you get here?
Oh, wow. I'll go back to the beginning. I
Okay.
have to. I was minding my own business one day,
As you always do.
as
right?
I always do. I kid you not. And, my mother was on her way out the door. She too was a dishwasher, and we were having a conversation offline about washing dishes. She too was a dishwasher in a high school, and she was on her way to work one morning, and I was on my way to school, and she asked me, she said, "Brian, what are you going to do with your life?"
How old were you?
I was 17.
Okay.
It was the only meaningful conversation my mother and I have ever had.
Ever?
Ever.
It was most profound.
Most
one.
profound. She said, and the backstory is one of my friends had just committed a robbery and got in trouble and was going to the penitentiary and that kind of stuff, and she didn't want that fate for me.
Right.
And so knowing that friend was a close friend of the family, right, and had spent the night in my house so many days, and was like a brother from
Of
another
course.
mother
Right.
to us, right? She came to me and she asked me that question. She said, "I don't want you shot dead in the street." And you got to remember, back in the 80s, a lot of violence around gangs and drugs and all that kind of stuff, and we were living in a housing project and what have you. She said, "I don't want you in penitentiary like your father, right? You're very smart, you're handsome," and mothers always think their son
Of
is
course
handsome,
they
whether
do.
that's true or not, right? And find something to do with your life. Scared me half to death.
Did it?
Like I said, it was the only meaningful conversation we've ever really had that way. scared me so much. I laid on the couch, just thinking what I was going to do. Thought I was going to go to the military, like a lot of my friends, but wasn't accepted by the military because I have a disability in my stomach. And went to school next day, and there was an admissions counselor there, and I asked my second period teacher if I could go hear what the man had to say. And she said, Brian, I didn't know you were thinking about college. And I said, well, you know, I don't know anything about it, but I'd love to hear him. And her name was LaRoyce Beatty, and she let me go. And I went down there, and he started talking about alphas and deltas and kappas and qs and all this other kind of stuff. And, you know, that piqued my interest, right? You
Quickly.
And so I was like, I'm going to go to college, right? And it was just that simple. It was a done deal. I was going to college. Except I made a 12 on the ACT, and all these universities, everybody I applied to told me I couldn't come. It wouldn't be fair to admit me because I made a 12 on the ACT and I would never graduate. So it wouldn't be fair to me, to
you,
to let me in and have a chance to try, knowing I would never be successful.
So
right?
They were doing you a favor.
That's right. And so, you know, as this thing go, you know, I kept on applying, right? And people were calling me all kind of fools and dummies. And yeah, give me $25. I'll tell you no. You know, in the neighborhood, right? You know, that's how it goes and stuff. But I just kept applying, and sure enough, every letter was no. And then finally, I got a letter, and I read it over the trash can. I started not to read it at all, and it was a letter of no, thank you. You'll never graduate. But at the bottom, it said, if you want to appeal this, you can.
Oh.
And so I put it in my pocket. I walked to Shoney's. I bust my tables. You know, I washed the dishes. And every time I had a break, I'd pull that letter out and read it, make sure I wasn't crazy. It actually said what I said. And I couldn't trust anybody in the work environment in that restaurant. You know, they might dip it in some grease or set it on fire or something, you know, just for spite, right? So I had to hold on to it myself. I couldn't trust anybody else with it. And so I went home, went to bed, cleaned up, went to bed, got up the next morning, and went to the library. And I got out a dictionary, and I read the definition of appeal. Wow. And they said, oh, wow, you can ask for reconsideration. You can explain your situation, yada, yada, yada. I sat right there. I took out 2 pages from a spiral-bound notebook, and I wrote the best letter of my life. Now, I've started scholarships. I've done all type of reports for commissioners and senators and legislators. I've been in meetings with Chuck Hagel, Richard Blumenthal, you know, you name it, all type of, you know, real serious people across this country. And none of that would have been possible without that 2-page spiral-bound number 2 pencil handwritten letter, all right? Because I didn't have a typewriter, I didn't have a computer or nothing. I used the tools that I had. And I talked about, you know, my upbringing and where I was from and how the school system had us walking to school 2 miles each way in the weather. Couldn't let us wear shorts because I don't know, we might do something to each other. And, you know, it's 90 degrees in June and whatever. We can't wear shorts. There's no air conditioning. And when we didn't go to school, they said we didn't care about our education. Little only it was a blizzard outside, right? That wasn't the reason. The reason we didn't go is because we didn't care. And so I put all those factors into my letter about, you know, how I hadn't been introduced to Socrates and Plato and, you know, Mozart and all these things. And you're asking me about stuff that no one has ever exposed me to.
Wow. And
they let me in on probation. And I had a requirement of earning a 1.0 GPA.
1.0.
1.0. And if I didn't earn a 1.0, I would be expelled. Not put on probation, not suspended or anything like that, but expelled. And so, as fate would have it, I did very well. Bachelor's, master's, and eventually PhD. That story was exactly the same at every level. And so it kind of led me into being a champion for people who really historically have been underserved, right?
And the underdogs a little bit.
That's right. Yeah. Absolutely.
What an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for hearing it.
Okay. But that's inspiring, because somebody's going to hear that and know that that's me, or they can identify with that and know that with perseverance and I'm sure a lot of prayer, God can take you anywhere.
Absolutely.
Anywhere.
Absolutely. My grandmother, she knew the Bible back and forward. When I came in, I asked your husband about Matthew. I said, well, I don't recognize that one. What is that one? And then, I shared some, or at least one, right? Philippians 4:13. And there are many others. I have so many. That I subscribe to and hold on to. But a lot of prayers.
Yeah.
My mother, who didn't finish high school, and my grandmother, who went to 6th, 7th grade.
Wow.
In Elberton, Georgia, right, in the 1930s. You can imagine what that was like, right? Yeah, they raised me well. They looked out for me. They beat me half to death when I did things that were unbecoming or damaged their name or something like that. But I think I'm a better person for it. I really do.
Well, I know you are. Well, what are some of the biggest challenges currently in your position that you think you face in this inaugural year? What are some of the biggest challenges that you're working to overcome?
Well, I've only been here about 4 months, so I can't really holistically speak to what those challenges are, because I'm still learning, right?
That's fair.
In some ways. But I could say, as you think about this from the national phenomena lens, there are some things that I think will be transferable from previous institutions to this institution. One is, raising the consciousness and the awareness and understanding about DEI issues and why things are really important, right?
To be a champion.
To be a champion, right? There's so many things that we have to talk about and think about and learn and appreciate and give value to, that historically we may not have always understood that or appreciated that.
Sure.
There's always a challenge for resources, right? Because these things take resources.
Absolutely.
They take money. We were talking about Roland Martin earlier, right? Well, if you're going to have him engaged in a program or activity, that's going to have a nice price tag with it, right? So you got to have resources for that, right? When I think about the equity gap for the rate at which people in different populations are graduating from college, right? I think that's also important, right? There's a number of different things that you can just talk about and work on, and each and every one of these things could be their own job independently. Absolutely.
So what's a typical day for you been in these 4 months? What's a typical day in the life for Dr. Samuel?
No such thing.
What did you do today?
No such thing.
What do you mean? What are you typically doing in a day?
Today I had about 4 meetings for the first half of the day, and now I'm here with you. But I average about, 6 to 8 meetings a day. And then there's a number of different projects. You always have to have a great degree of dexterity and agility, right? Because you never know what the day is going to bring you. True. Somebody has a challenge in their work environment, or something is going on. There's an issue. Somebody is going to have an accreditation vision, and they need to prepare for, how to tell the story of everything that they've been doing in this department. Somebody wants a job, right? They want to come from this place to that place, and you're the VP of DEI. Find me a job, right? Someone has a spouse who, I work here at the university, and my spouse need a job, so help us get that done, right?
You do it all, huh?
Well, I don't do it all by myself. I have really good partners in human resources and faculty affairs, and the different colleges, the deans, the other vice presidents that are my colleagues, right? So what I try to do is be collaborative and strategically coordinate some things that are important to moving the needle for everybody.
So as you think of the future, what is your true desire and hope for this department?
That we will be that go-to place when when there's an issue or question, and maybe even before there's an issue or question, right? I can see something happening or coming up and being an important question for my department, for my unit, for my division, or what have you. I've been thinking a lot about this. What do you think? What do you recommend? Do you have a workshop or something that you can do? Is there somebody we can speak with who's a subject matter expert in this particular area, et cetera, et cetera? Okay.
Do you think or believe there'll ever be a time where this position that you have currently is no longer needed?
I think that's a wish a goal, something to strive for. But I don't think with any degree of reliability that that's going to happen in our lifetime. When we think about social justice, when we think about racism, when we think about sexism, when we think about, religious disparities and disdain for people in different cultural identities and other kind of things, I mean, that's been going on hundreds of years, right? So to think that, we might could solve it in the next 50, I doubt it. I think that's ideal, but it's gonna way outlive our lifetime. Okay. All of us.
Well, are there any other programs at UT Arlington that we should know about that you'd like to share with the audience here that we should be aware of?
There are so many initiatives that I can speak to, but I'll just point to this one particular one. It's called Maverick Respect through Education, Awareness, and Dialogue. And we have selected Heather McGee's The Sum of Us, what racism costs everyone. And we're going to offer that up to faculty and staff to read, and we're going to have a number of activities and dialogues around the various themes of that book. And so we're anticipating to start the reading in October, and then do the activities from November through April 2022.
That's going to be fantastic.
I sure hope so.
Well, good. Okay, so now you're in the city of Arlington. Now, have you discovered some new places?
Oh, boy.
Anything in your favorites you want to talk about on our last comments?
Man, let me tell you, I got a lot of favorites.
Tell me two.
Two? Only two?
3, 4. However many you want.
Well, I tell you, if you haven't had Ella B's,
okay.
You haven't lived.
Okay,
oh man, it'll change your life. It will change your life. That food is delicious.
What did you have there?
I went to a brunch celebration done by the Arlington Black Chamber of Commerce, and we had a little of everything, a little, dinner, a little breakfast, a little lunch, or what have you, and we especially had the peach cobbler.
Ella B's.
At the corner of Collins and I want to say the Randall Mill, at the corner of Collins and Randall Mill. Okay. And I thought I knew what wonderful peach cobbler was.
You thought until Ella.
My grandmama ain't gonna see this.
No,
okay,
she won't.
Anyway, I thought but then I had Ella B's, and it was just dynamite. I also like Lebanese Prince. Okay. The falafels, shawarmas, gyros, the baba ganoush change your life. It's just delicious.
I need to come hang out with you.
Yeah, you're gonna gain some pounds. I didn't get this way by accident, right? I work at it.
Well, it's all part of the job, right?
That's right. I could keep going. There are quite a few.
What I do know, though, is that the University of Arlington has a phenomenal addition to their prestigious university. Just you being here has already made a difference in this short 4 months. And I just wanted to my goal for everybody here is to bring trailblazers to you that are affecting our community. So I can't thank you enough, Dr. Brian Samuel, for joining us today. It has been my absolute pleasure to have you here. Guys, any last words you'd like to say?
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And, when you think about your higher education needs and interests, University of Texas Arlington is a Texas Tier 1 university, and a very strong university for producing bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. That's right. Make sure we're your first choice when you get ready to go down that road and begin your path to a bachelor's, master's, or a PhD.
All the way from a dishwasher.
That's right.
All right, y'all. As always, have a blessed and amazing day.